Okay, so welcome to getting started with Onshape. We're going to take a quick tour of Onshape. I'll mention a few of the tools that I'm using on here to help you visualize what I'm clicking or what keys I'm pressing on my keyboard. So the first thing that you should be, or sort of first place that you're at, should be the website Onshape. So I'm going to assume that you've already made an account and that you're logged in. So first page that you'll see something like this. So if you're working on a document that has been shared with you, it might appear down here if you've clicked on it before, or you need to follow that link. Or you have this little tab in here called Shared with Me. So multiple ways to access a shared document that you might be working on. So I'm going to start fresh. So we're going to do that by creating a new document and just kind of learn what's going on with Onshape and kind of getting started. So you have some structure here, fairly similar to, say, like a Google Docs or something similar, where you can create your document, which is where you're going to make your model, or folder structure where you can store, maybe say, like a project for a particular class or a thing that you might be working on. I'm going to start with just a document. And you can kind of see down here that I've got different project folders already from things I've worked on. So let's go ahead and create a new document. So let's give this document a descriptive name. So we'll say getting started with Onshape. You can change that to something that's a little bit more descriptive for you. I'm going to click create, and this is going to open up a window. It looks something like this. So it's a bit overwhelming at first if you've never used any kind of modeling tool where you have all these buttons across the top. We're not going to use all these buttons, at least not now. But one of the cool things is when you hover over each one of these little buttons or icons at the top, you'll see that it tells you what's going on with them. So it says, okay, that's an external thread, and gives you all kinds of options as you hover over them. The icons that have a little down arrow, those just mean that you have more options underneath the button or underneath the icon. All right, so where to start first? So when we're modeling in 3 dimensions here, usually our starting point is to start with a 2D sketch, and then we'll expand that 2D sketch into something that's 3D. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And in this video, we're just going to make pretty straightforward shapes and modify those. So to keep this pretty short, in follow-up videos, we'll manipulate those shapes and do a little bit more with them. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is click Sketch. And what it's asking for now, if you see that it's red right here, it just means that you haven't selected an option correctly. So it's waiting for you to do something. And if you look towards the center, it's telling you what to do. It says select a sketch plane. So this is the place where we're going to start our 2D sketch. Something that's going to be important, we're not going to emphasize it too much here because we're making relatively simple shapes, but it's important to think about how you're going to use this part, what its intended, what its intent is for, so something called design intent. We'll talk a little bit more about that in later videos. For now, we're going to pick this front plane as we're going to make a little cube. So I've got my front plane selected. I can absolutely start sketching in this view. It's a little bit hard because it's at this angle. So I'm going to orient it so that it's looking at me like a sheet of paper, if you will. So I can do that by going up here and left-clicking and moving this, left-clicking on different parts of this cube to change the orientation. And the view that we're looking at is the front view, or I can hold my right mouse button down, so you can see it turned red around my arrow. So I'm holding the right mouse button down, and I can move this all around. It's pretty easy to get disoriented pretty quickly. Nice thing is you've got front, top, and right written on these little planes to keep your orientation. And you've also got this little cube up here, which I can left click on to see my orientation. So I'm going to just click on front plane so it orients it. I'm looking at the front plane. The dot you see in the very center here, that's the origin. So that's the anchor point for this whole document. So I'm going to start by sketching. Um, you notice that our icons actually changed up top. They're totally different because we're in 2D, so we're only going to do 2D things. So I'm going to make a rectangle because my goal is to make a cube. So let's click on that rectangle. I can pick any place to start. I'm going to pick the origin here, and you see it turns this little yellowy color. And I'm just going to pick a random size. There we go. So if we want this cube to be, let's say we want a 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch cube, I need to give Onshape some dimensions. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to click this little dimension thing up top, or I can press D on my keyboard. You'll see that it gives you the keyboard shortcut when you hover over the menu. So I'm going to click on that. And we don't need to dimension all 4 sides because when we made this corner rectangle, Onshape automatically gave some relationship between these sides to always maintain this rectangle being a rectangle. So meaning that my angles in here, I'm going to click and drag these little blue dots, my angles in here will always remain 90 degrees. And if you hover over these different lines, you'll see that that little black icon shows up. That's just telling you the relationship between the different lines. So it says that this line is perpendicular to another line, parallel, and it's remaining horizontal. That's what each of those icons mean. And they're up here as well. So let's get some dimensions. So if these 2 lines are parallel to each other, that means I only need to dimension one of them. So we said 1 inch, so I'm going to press 1 on my keyboard. The default units here are inches. And you'll notice that it's turning black, which is good. We want it to turn black. We don't want this blue, it means it's underdefined. I'm going to click up here and make this 1. And now we have this lovely square. So I can do a couple things now to form a cube. So I can go ahead and click the green check to accept the sketch. I can also go up here to do the extrude, but I'm just going to click the green arrow there, or the green check mark. So now I have a sketch. That's great, but that's only 2D. So I'm right-clicking, holding down that right mouse button, and I'm dragging around. I'm looking at it. Wow, that's a plane. That's not very exciting, right? I'm going to leave it in this view. I'm going to go up and I'm going to click this button called Extrude. So Extrude's going to take that 2D sketch and it's going to turn it into a 3D object. So we're going to think about pulling it out or away from you to extrude it. So I can either click on the shape I want to extrude, or let me go up here and click this X to delete it, or I can click on the sketch that I want to extrude. I'm going to click on the sketch. And I get some options in here, so I can change the direction. I can change the depth. So I actually do want it to be 1 inch since I'm making a cube. I can also manually go over here and left click and hold on that arrow to change the extrusion. But I don't want to do that because I know my depth. I want it to be 1 inch. I can do some other stuff. I can do this thing called draft, which is going to change its angle. So I could make it 20 degrees, right? Or I could change the direction that it drafts it. But I'm just making a cube, so I'm going to leave it as such. So once I'm happy with that, I'll click the green checkbox. Something to make sure, because you may have accidentally clicked up here, is make sure that you're building a solid and that it's new. So we're not adding, we're actually making a new extrusion. So I'm going to click the check. And voila, you have your first 3-dimensional shape. And I'm right-clicking, holding that right mouse button down so I can view it in 3 dimensions. Or Same thing over here on this little cube. So that's getting started. We made a cube, not super exciting, but in our follow-up videos, we'll do some other modifications and talk about how to make some more interesting stuff. Thanks for listening.